If you have a great plan today, and it's of any size and scale, and if you can bring your trust and credibility and brand equity on the table, money is not a constraint.
Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, co-founder of the Hiranandani Group, creator of the famous Hiranandani Gardens township, chairman of Yada Infrastructure, and one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, according to Forbes.
Dr. Hiranandani, great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
Chris, it's happy to be with you and to get into this podcast. Looking forward to have a great interaction with you this afternoon.
So when I first heard about you and started doing some research on you, the first thing that came up was Hiranandani Gardens. And I was fascinated with this immediately, obviously, because I think this is where the world is moving to. So for the listeners out there that don't know, Hiranandani Gardens is a township in Mumbai. And it's has a neoclassical skyline with around 42 residential towers, 23 commercial blocks, a hospital, 2 schools, retail shopping center, clubs, parks. It's a city within a city, and it houses around 50,000 people. And it doubles also as a tech startup hub, all around private utilities and a green infrastructure. Now, you started this vision in the 80s, and I want you real quick to picture yourself standing on that stretch of marshland in the 80s, ankle deep in mud, no roads, no skyline. What did you see in that marshland that everybody else missed? How did you have that first flash of vision to reshape the land, but also reshape what was possible?
Chris, you're taking me back on the memory lane to really try and dig deep as to what this entire thing meant. The story goes something like this. I used to do a couple of buildings in another location in Mumbai called Versova, and I built 11 buildings. Each time I had to buy a separate plot. I didn't have enough money to buy 11 of them, and I just bought one, built the buildings, sold them, bought the second plot, and so on and so forth, and built 11 apartment blocks. Every time I built the buildings, I had a question to myself. And the question was, I built a good building, but the access road is not good. The water supply is bad. There are no gardens in the area. There's no proper schools. There's nothing which is there. The environment around my buildings are bad. And then I realized that no matter how much hard work that I did put, the kind of people who came to stay in my apartment blocks would really not live a good quality of life. Because even though my apartments were good as compared to what other people were making, I still said, if I step out of the house, I'm not going to be a happy man. So I really looked at places which were a little far away from the madding crowd in those days, a quarry land, large quarry land, far beyond my capacity to buy, but actually went in for the thing with a gusto, with one simple vision. And that was that no matter what I make over there, when I walk out of apartment, my house, my place, or my office block or anything, I would have a quality of life which would be second to none to anybody, anywhere who would be a happy person. So the idea was really to create what you said before, Chris, a mini city within a city. And that's how it all began. Very tough one to start with. Let me share another short story about this. About 5-7 years ago, I had some people, international visitors, who came to see this project because it's still considered, after 35 years of development, they still talk about it being a premier township within the city. So they asked me, Mr. Hiranandani, who was the master planner of this project area? And I smiled and then actually almost broke into laughter. And they said, why? You want to hide the name of the master planner? And I said, no. I'm not going to hide the name of the master planner. I said, I couldn't afford a master planner, so I did the master planning myself. So the joke is really that I'm telling probably the first time that in any podcast that there was no master planner for a project which is still considered to be a premier master plan project in Mumbai city. So it's quite funny that we see that and people still talk about it after 35 years of development which has taken place and so much completed that people still talk about it as a great master plan project. So it's quite a lot of fun to hear these stories from people at this age and time.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed about it, and a lot of similar type of entrepreneurs or visionaries like yourself is that you were just so far ahead of your time. You think about what's happening in the Middle East now, and you have Saudi Arabia and Dubai and Qatar, and they're building these cities now, and you had the vision for this back in the 1980s. And it's really shifting the way people live and enjoy life. And it's absolutely fascinating. Was there any type of other motivation tied to that other than like, well, I'm young and I think I can do this and I want to help the world and let's just try it and see what happens? Was there anything else tied to that?
In hindsight, yes. Maybe I didn't think of it that way at that point of time, but if I look back now today, there were some thoughts of mine. My father was a professional. He was a doctor. He was a very renowned doctor, very rewarded, awarded international wrote books on cancer and created new surgeries in the head and neck region, but not that kind of moneyed person as, having the millions or billions. And we stayed in a place which was a high quality area in Mumbai, Malabar Hill. And there were good buildings over there, and I went to a great school. My father was a doctor. He attended the best hospitals in Mumbai. But there was always a thought in my mind. This is far away, and it's not the rich areas where the rich and famous stay or the top end of the city people stay. But my idea was that whenever I make any building there, or I make any apartment there, or I make any commercial building or hospital or schools, they should all be better than the best place in Mumbai. So the concept was that how can I bring about in a, I would say, lower middle class area, as we call it here, and we make actually the top end buildings quality for there. So that was in the top of my mind. So we made apartment blocks which were kind of extremely, for the area, they were the top end. Number two, I went and built a school there. And when I built the school, I used to attend to a South Mumbai school, which was considered one of the top 4 schools in Mumbai at that point of time. And it had a very good building. But when I built a school in Powai, in Hiranandani Gardens, I made it better than my school building in South Mumbai, which was considered the best. My father also went to the best hospitals in Mumbai. And when we built a hospital in Powai, the target was to say, can I build a hospital better than the best hospitals in Mumbai, especially because my father worked in those hospitals all his life. And so everything that I conceived was actually to see, can I get a better quality of life of people living into Powai or Hiranandani Gardens than the best place in Mumbai? It was a very big challenge because after all, the pricing in that area in those days were maybe 25% of the prices of what was there in South Mumbai. So obviously there was a challenge in order to meet the targets and destinations that we did. But we really stepped out of our way to make these two ends meet. And ultimately, we succeeded in order to say that the best people in the city wouldn't mind coming to stay at Hiranandani Gardens and live a quality of life. The best multinationals, Standard & Poor has their office, corporate office in India in our complex. Various multinationals, Lehman, till it was working in India, had their corporate head office in Powai, in Hiranandani Gardens. So we were able to manage to draw from downtown, center of the city, people who would come and live, stay, work, educate, and hospitals into this area. Of course, over a period of time. It didn't happen in a day. It took decades before actually we reached the top end of the curve. But it was a climb, and it was a beautiful climb, and we were always climbing up.
So I'm curious about the beginning steps you started to make after you had that vision. And I know you were developing a little bit before you dove into Hiranandani Gardens, because what I see today is a lot of people, and I'm a community builder myself, a lot of people wanting to start communities to live differently, and I'm plugged in significantly to the digital nomad world where people want to live in different countries and raise family in different countries from where they were brought up and have different types of schooling systems. And so people are trying to build communities, whether it's Costa Rica or Bali or Portugal or different areas around the world, and they're having a lot of difficulties because of everything that is included in the hospitals, the schools, the living, the getting the right type of people there involved in the communities. What were the initial steps for you Was it raising money, getting the right partners on board, figuring out the perfect target market? Can you take us through some of those?
Very tough, very difficult story.
We know it's not easy. If everybody would do it, but yes.
Because pain points. The point is, it was always uphill task. I was a first generation businessman. I didn't have a reputation, didn't have the brand value, didn't have anything across my sleeve to show that, I would be successful. I would deliver what I was talking about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the start was very tough. Nobody was willing to give me money. People didn't find me creditworthy. Banks, financial institutions didn't touch me with a 10-foot pole, and so on and so forth. But I think once we delivered the first end of the product over a period of 3-4 years, the kind of reaction that we got from people who bought, people who came, who saw, they were kind of taken aback because they couldn't believe that in a location like this, a very remote second-class location at that point of time, would have the kind of flavor, quality of buildings, etc., etc. And in those days, Mumbai was infamous for bad quality of buildings at that point of time. So we really didn't have many people who built great quality buildings. So I automatically, by default, stood out exceptionally well. Because not only was I making good quality, but I was benchmarking against the best. So I had two levels which I beat other people with. One, benchmarking with the best. And second, in that period of time, a lot of bad quality buildings came in because there was a lot of shortage of apartment blocks in the city, not in the peripheral areas which I was working, because this was far away, as I told you, from the madding crowd, very distant from the places where most of the people were habiting or living. But still, it took a great amount of persuasion, time, effort, etc., to convince people and to make two ends meet into the project areas. And but of course, ultimately the proof was that we did succeed. But till we did the first lot of buildings, apartment blocks that we delivered, then of course it grew, the reputation grew, people flocked around, they were quite amazed with the quality, they were surprised with the quality, then they were amazed with the quality. So they went up the value chain where we kind of gave a delight to the customer who couldn't believe it. In those days, buildings in Mumbai, the apartment blocks that were constructed, always leaked in the monsoon. We have heavy rains. We have very, very heavy monsoons. In our buildings, no building leaked. Simple as that. We made gardens. It was called Hiranandani Gardens. We kind of made gardens after gardens after gardens. And people were delighted because the quality of life for people was great. We built a school in that area, and at that point of time, nobody built a quality school of the standard which was in downtown Mumbai. So all this and more was a huge, humongous crisis, literally, to come up to that level, make two ends meet, and cross the barrier of a middle-class, distant location to become a prime location of a high quality where the rich and famous would be happy to come here and use as an address. So today, if I travel internationally, people would say, Hiranandani Gardens, oh, that great township, I've been there. There's a friend who stayed there. Oh, my company has a corporate office in Hiranandani Gardens. How are you related to them? And they would suddenly ask all these questions. And, it's over a period of 35 years, I do travel. And when I travel, invariably, people come up and talk to me and say, we've been there, I've studied in your school. I was born in your hospital. Your hospital is now 21 years old. And, it's a delight to see this young people coming out of this place and really happy and talking about it with great pride. And, I worked there, I stayed there, et cetera, et cetera. It's something which turned simply because I think I targeted to do the best that I could in those circumstances. And then, of course, There was no looking back, and we climbed the ladder on and on.
So you mentioned the first phase, and then you said things started to pick up and people started to get more eyes on you after the first phase. And I'm curious about, even in the beginning of the first phase, who was the first person that really believed in you, that said, oh, or the first company that said, we'll put some money to back this idea? And where did you find them?
Actually, it was those people who had sold apartments to in the midtown location which I had built earlier. I built 11 buildings there. And though the location was not so great, but my quality of buildings in that location was very good. So 11 buildings, 160 apartments in each, 60, 1,000 apartments plus, delivered at that point of time. Many of those people had relatives, had friends, people who were channel partners who worked with me in those locations and all, realized that I was very committed. And I kind of created a small company at that time, but they knew that we were trying to build quality work in our project area. Though the location was not the best at that point of time, Chris, the people believed in me because I had delivered so many apartments, 1,000 apartments in those places. So the linkages of them, I think, was a beginning where people who took those apartments said, oh, we don't mind investing with Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani in this new location. Plus those who were channel partners and other people who worked with us in those buildings knew that even when the prices went up and they were very thin, we never backed out of a single transaction in any transaction that we did. So we built a small level of trust, a small level of integrity, which I think stood up, and people were willing to stretch themselves and come to a place. They said, Hiranandani, do you think anybody will come and stay here? We're going to invest because we believe in you. But do you think it's really going to work? Don't you think you're pricing it too high for the kind of location you are? I mean, those kind of questions are. Today, they pay 50 times that price. And they don't even question me as to what kind of apartment are you going to give? They don't question me. What kind of facilities we are going to provide? Not question. How is going to be the access and the other quality of the buildings that I make? No questions asked. They don't even bother to meet me. They just meet some of my executives, and they're happy to dole out their checks and transfer the monies. And 2022, my last sale outlet for the last 6-8 months, I was just doing a review last week, 23% of the people who bought apartments in my new project near the new international airport bought it through the internet and interviewing my salespeople on VC. So the transaction was done on the internet, buying apartments in Mumbai. Near the new airport is a new project called Hiranandani Fortune City, where the new airport is going to open this year. And hardly any questions asked. I think in those days, the smallest of smallest people who bought a small apartment at a very low price questioned me like I was going through an interrogation in a police station. But today, it's kind of, I think my salespeople find it much easier.
Has it been duplicated? Has other people come in and tried to do similar things in different places around the world?
Of course. We have a large number of projects which have come up in India. But funnily, even projects which are now coming up, brand new projects, the developers come and tell me that they're coming to Powai to see my project and emulate some of the ideas which I created 35 years ago. So it sounds a little strange to me, but even the new project people who are coming up in India, younger people, trying to do better deals and better work all over the country, replicating something I did, but ideas which are pretty old, actually.
How old were you at the time when you started this project?
I'm now 75, so 35 years ago, I was, 40, close to 40, 38.
Yeah, okay. And what was, so we get to hear the good side of the story, all the pretty sides of building the gardens and it all working out. But I'm curious, what was the hardest point throughout that period to make this a success? So for example, as we grow as entrepreneurs, it's almost inevitable that people are going to come through lawsuits and false accusations and challenges and things like this. So I'm curious because I think it's really insightful for a lot of people. Like I went through a very hard time in business over the past couple years, came out on the backside of it. Everything turned out all right, but we have these challenges. They're huge, and they break people sometimes. So I'm curious, what was the hardest time throughout building the gardens for you, and how did you overcome it?
50 stories in 40 years. Large number of falls, large number of setbacks, huge challenges that we met, legal challenges, investor challenges, allegations of fraud, allegations of cheating. And I won $30 million, $20 million compensation for wrongful legal action against me in a Singapore court, stuff like that, to say the least. Allegations from private people that I had crossed the barriers of law in terms of what I was doing in terms of projects. The shit hit the roof so many times that it's not funny. But, we fell down. We had difficulties. We had the Lehman crisis, which hit us also. There were so many setbacks when the markets went down, costs went up. We had a huge period where inflation was 15% per annum for a period of 2 years. It actually shook up my entire commitment levels to the marketplace. So combining of all these things really worked our way in terms of actually pulling us down and giving us setbacks, humiliating us actually, literally. And landed up in the front page of the newspapers saying, how fraudulent we were. From that to now being recognized by industry, by private people and the government on various government bodies and private agencies and social projects, the whole tide has turned, but that doesn't take off the kind of pain that one did go through when you did go through it. So that has to be taken for anybody who's trying to be an entrepreneur in a developing country like India.
What do you do to keep strong during those hard times? Is there, do you rely on family? Do you, are you a spiritual man? Do you exercise to keep your mind sharp? I know I had to go through a lot of meditation and cold plunges when I went through. You're not afraid of anything when you're in ice cold water. That's what I always say. And so I'm curious, what are some of the things that you did to keep yourself emotionally and mentally strong during those times? So
I'm God-fearing and God-believing. I'm not spiritual too much, though I'm a trustee of 3 temples in India, but I do believe in God tremendously, and I do believe in that He destines all these things. We have to put in our story of the Gita tells us that we have to do our duty and leave the rest to God. And if He's bringing some hurdles, He will give you the shoulders to meet those hurdles. So you read our books, and they will tell you exactly how it is done. They give you an idea of all the difficulties. Even the Lord Himself, Krishna, when He came down on earth, He faced war. And the entire story of the Gita is based on a war within families and how in that terrible situation, one should be able to shoulder those difficulties, which are the worst. Your family relationship issues are considered one of the worst. But combined with that, spirituality, in that sense of the term, I would say that I think keeping yourself busy with various different types of activity, which is different from what you do. It is exercise, it's being swimming, squash, part of the yoga that I do. And I think more than anything else, I got interested in a lot of not-for-profit activity because of my father. He initiated me into the education field in a bigger way than just my school. So ultimately, I have landed up too much into the education field, which is not-for-profit, and it's also into the medical field, which I have hospitals, which is again not-for-profit. All this activity, I think, was initiated to me at a time when I was going through tough times. So I think a part of that thing was to keep your mind busy with different things while you meet those challenges and hurdles and pitfalls. I think a combination of both of them.
I want to talk about Indian business culture, but first I want to ask you this question. It may be a little tricky. So Taking the growth of Hiranandani Gardens, if you were to break that into chapters, like a book, what would you name each chapter and why? So let's start with the first chapter.
So I think the first chapter is discovery, discovery of the self. Discovery of the self, that you can actually dream differently and create something which is just in a mind and has never been done before. So that's a discovery phase that you nearly need to do. Once you have a discovery in mind, then you try to understand how does this work in terms of the ground realities of numbers in terms of money, numbers in terms of scale, numbers in terms of quality. All that is numbers. But the first is a dream. The first is only a dream. But then you start trying to collate the dream on the ground in reality. And you know there are 20,000 steps before you can meet your vision. And you have to start with the first step. That's the most difficult one. Because you know now you're going to try and climb Mount Everest. And this is your first step that you have to do. So you do 5 years of training before you reach the base camp of the Everest. And another 1 to 2 years before you train to reach Mount Everest. So I think what is it that's the vision, and then the action, and then that one step at a time that you do, and then after that, willingness to accept setbacks, hurdles, crises, problems, etc., is, I think, the ground which I think each entrepreneur goes through in different ways at different points of time. But the Indian mindset is all about that kind of entrepreneurial action that takes place. So the small person will live in a house and will have a shop in front of his house. So he would go to sleep at the back of the house, but would be available to open his house even at the shop at midnight to be able to serve people. That's the smallest kind of entrepreneur that we have. And then you move up the value chain and you get various other people who are willing to take the risk to step out of the box and say, okay, I step out of my comfort zone, and then I move towards a vision which is a dream that can come true. And of course, the destination keeps changing. The destination is never the same of what you thought when you first started the thing. In my case, it just became 5,000 times bigger than what I thought it would be. But then that grows over a period of time, and circumstances, environment, success, story is all about the next step that you take, and then you keep climbing. So the first time you learned to climb a hillock, next time you started climbing a big hill, the third time you said, now I am doing trekking for so many years, let me take a challenge. And we now go to the hill slopes of the Himalayas. So I think it's all about growing beyond yourself at any point of time. But the secret is get out of your comfort zone.
Yes, well put. I like the analogy of climbing Mount Everest, because you have to take the first steps, and those are generally pretty exciting. If you think about climbing a mountain, the hardest part is really right before you hit the peak. The last probably 20% is the most difficult, and where most people quit and fail. So fantastic analogy. Okay, let's talk about your Indian roots. And I know they shaped your business mindset significantly. And I don't know a lot about Indian culture, to be honest. I haven't been to India, but I'm fascinated how different cultures see business and experience business. For example, I was involved in some negotiations once with Chinese. And to do business with Chinese, for the most part, is pretty good. They have a concept of negotiate like you're at war, and then work together like you're best friends. And so it's fascinating to see when you can get behind that mindset, and then you can apply it to your own business world. So I'd love to learn some of the things that help shape you as an entrepreneur that started from your early days in living in India.
So the Indian mindset is something like this, as I can interpret it. The first is the fact that there are families and people, not my family and people, but many Indian families and people, which are inborn entrepreneurial risk-taking abilities. My family was not that, but I still managed to get into that culture fold where I got into that entrepreneurial mode, which is very Indian-like, but not my family. My family was professional. But the Indian psyche is very much like that. So that's fun. The second, which is very interesting, and the most interesting, I think, Chris, for you. We only believe in long-term relationships. We don't have short-term deals. We hardly, so there are people working with me for 40 years. Their first jobs and they still work with me. There are people with me 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 12 years. They're all working with me. Somebody who's working with me for 7 years feels like he was born yesterday in my company. So it's kind of a thing. The second, there are many people with whom I'm dealing today, for instance, who are channel partners who work with me. They worked 30 years ago. Their children are working with me. And now their grandchildren may be joining me in working for sales in my companies, for my companies. We have contractors who wouldn't be able to afford a bicycle when they started, and they drive now BMWs to come to the site, and they have got huge infrastructure, and they are our contractors who do our building contract work. So we work with a large number of people whom we develop over a period of years and create a network of strong bonds who we can trust. And we don't have to look behind our back to check on them. And when they are delivering the thing, once they're used to making quality buildings, we know that if this contractor is going to join us, he will not only do a good job, but he has the integrity and honesty and commitment to our company on a long-term basis because his father was my contractor. And he is also now my contractor. And he thinks that one day his son, when he comes up, also will be a contractor to a Hiranandani expanded group. I know it sounds funny to a Western world. It's a very strange business relationship that we do. But there is a kind of a bonding that we believe in terms of the Indian psyche, and that works for families, generations, and other people, and so on and so forth. And it does still continue to work for us. Don't be surprised. I was myself surprised. So for me also, it's a kind of a discovery which happened over a period of years, and I suddenly realized that the things that we are not yet good at, the cooperative working, interseed, because everybody in our company is, unlike the Japanese who work like good teams, we have silos of excellence. So I'll get a guy who's a great guy who can probably run a company as well as I do, just doing engineering and so on and so forth. But integrated, I think the Japanese do a better job than we do. So we have qualities of excellence which are second, and we have brilliant people. We have mindsets which are extraordinary. People who can bring solutions to the table which is ingenious and work very hard when called to do. So a combination of things which have been working for India. And I think the growth story of India, which is now the fastest growing country in the world, is probably because of all these things, but also that the confidence in the country has grown tremendously. Earlier, I think we didn't have that confidence 30 years ago, that we could be a great country. Today, every Indian believes that ours will be a great country, is a good country, and will become one of the great countries in the world. Somehow that is now growing, and I think it's wonderful mindset that we see across the board.
What are some, thank you for sharing that, actually. That was very insightful. I'm curious if there's any other values from Indian business that Westerners or Western entrepreneurs might find very insightful or surprising.
I think there is another set of professionals that we have. So I'm now talking about good professionals that we have. The ability to be able to learn subjects of technology, subjects of, you pick up a field, and a large number of Indians are very good learners, and put them in any new concept that you do. So for instance, now we are working on AI. And I have 14 colleges working with me. I have more than 2,500 teachers and non-teaching staff in my colleges and all in Mumbai. And everybody is now asking me, how can I incorporate artificial intelligence into our curriculum? How can we use it for teaching, learning? My students are hungry for that part of it. And the teachers are petrified because they don't understand A from I. So they are now wanting to be faster learners, and the students are faster learners than even the teachers. So we are very challenged. So I think that hunger for the purposes of learning is something which I think is driven into the new generation of young people. So I think that I think is a quality which is not really known. And that's why you will see a large number of technical people all over the world who are going from India are actually coming up to be the best in the world. Software engineers, artificial intelligence engineers, all these people are there. Doctors are extremely capable and competent. Nurses, all these areas of ingenuity are exceedingly good. Many of them have come from second towns and third towns where they have not very little exposure. So some of them may not be the top end or cutting end of quality in the beginning. But once they are exposed to good quality learning and a little bit of better exposure in terms of training, which has not yet happened, what should I say, broadly enough. Focus, many of the colleges are fantastic. The IIMs, IITs, and other things in our institutions. We have the cutting edge of quality of technical people that we grow in our country, the best in the world. But yes, in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we still have a lot of way to go, but they're hungry. So what happens is, I do believe that in the next couple of years, we will see a generation change across the country. That is something I'm looking for.
Why do you think that? Why do you think Indians are so good at learning?
I think basically, Chris, I really don't know. I just think that, the family cultures, the parents want their children to be better than them, more prosperous. A large number of people grew in the poverty level. They struggle, they've come up from the value chain. A lot of people in the middle class want to be in the better quality of life. They've seen the world. They're becoming more prosperous. The parents are earning more. Their exposure to the world, the internet, the connectivity, all the lectures that they see and hear instantly all over the world. I think there is a want that we should climb beyond a certain level which we have reached now in their lives. And I think that's the reason why they're ready to work hard and really climb up and learn and learn. And there are learners, but I think yesterday's learners were slower learners. Today's learners are even faster learners. So they're ready to imbibe change much faster than probably I saw something 20 years ago.
Well, and we have access. I mean, the learners, I guess, or the students of today have access to information like we didn't have 20 or 30 years ago, and so any type of information that you want is a few buttons away. And now, especially with AI, you can soak it up so quickly, which is fascinating. But it's also scary a little bit too. Who knows what's going to come of it? I think anyway. One of the things I did want to mention is you credit your success to a unique Indian approach. And I think I'm pronouncing this correctly. Jugaad? Is that how you pronounce it? Jugaad. So it's creative problem solving, right? Can you elaborate a little bit how this mindset shaped your business?
Jugaad is all about risk taking. But in reality, the Indian mindset for the same risk taking ability is creative problem solving. So when you look at Jugaad, it means you're putting your bet on something. That's Jugaad in the common parlance. So if you and I are speaking and we are doing Jugaad, it means taking a risk on something. But in the Indian mindset, when they do business, they don't look at it that way. They look at Jugaad as creative problem solving. So for instance, let's say we had COVID. When we had COVID, we had the entire set of e-commerce and delivery reset in India within a period of 60 days. It was amazing. I mean, the entire country ran on and moved to the e-commerce where you could deliver any goods to any home, and in 30 minutes you would get anything that you want in a city like Mumbai or any of the metropolitan towns. And now that has moved to tier 2 and tier 3 cities too. So that Jugaad, which is otherwise risk, has been converted in the Indian mindset as being agile, as being looking at a problem and finding solutions. And these solutions can be very simple solutions, and it can be creative solutions that have worked over a period of years. So I'll give you an example. India always had shortage of milk, shortage of milk. And that because we have a lot of vegetarianism, it was a part of a source of protein that we had to have. The entire country now, in a period of 25 years, has created surplus milk. And that is just by creative idea of giving every farmer availability to resource cows, get the thing, having milk collection centers, doing it. And now we are one of the largest producers of milk in the world, including surplus milk. Just one of the ideas of to it. Let's look at foot prosthetics. If you lose your leg in a war or accident or whatever it is, we created what was called the Jaipur foot. The cost of the Jaipur is 4% of the cost of what it is available in the Western world. How much? 4% of the cost. Now, can you imagine? You pay $100 and you pay $4. That's prosthetic foot in India. And it's been done in millions. So it's not something which I'm talking. These two things are examples which are more than 30 years old. So I'm talking about Creative, Jugaad, which was done 30 years ago. The third thing that a large number of looking at is the creative idea of purpose behind the creativity. Many times we talk about what is the purpose with which you are doing this activity. So you're teaching because you want to make profit in the education system. You want to make money in the system. In India, 85% of all education institutions in India are not for profit. May I tell you, it's 85% of the private institutions are not for profit. No. Nowhere in the world it happens. No. So that is the kind of thought process that works in our situation, which is different from the rest of the world, which makes it unique, USP, which other places are not able to do. And that is why the innovation and other things which we didn't have a mindset to do, we were not good at it earlier. But the Jugaad mindset has now taken it up. And now you have, we used to have corporate entities which did this Jugaad. Today, individual, young people who have graduated and other things are able to do all these new things and entrepreneurship, which is unique. You cannot imagine what they're coming up with. Unique ideas and things which are second to none. And many of them have got a purpose which is not only money. Many of us would think, oh, they're doing all this only for money. Many of them come and tell me that, I said, but why are you doing this part of it? He says, oh, but this is good for the people of our country. I said, but you want to make money? He said, of course we want to make money. But there is something beyond just profits. So I think that is a big idea. So take, for instance, the largest, the second largest or third largest company in India, Tata group of companies which are India, 85% of it is held in charity. They are the third largest enterprise in India, Tatas. They are a full profit-making company. The corporate entity in front is profit-making, competing with the rest of the world, delivering software, delivering services, building cars, automobiles, highways, apartments, everything. They're into every industry, including defense, production of planes, etc., etc. So the front end is business, solid business. The back end is 80 to 85%. I don't know the exact number, surely more than 75. 75% of it goes to charity. So the profits of all these corporate entities, which pays full taxes, so they pay full taxes. They're not run as charities. The businesses are run, and even listed companies there, but the shareholding, 70 to 80% of them are charitable organizations. So what has happened is, over a period, and this is a 150-year-old company I'm talking about. So it's not, so I think the combination of a vision beyond profits, purposeful end of the thought process that we see in our country creates new things. And of course, what we said about the entrepreneurship in terms of examples that I gave you, 2 of them, and I can mention 10 more, but they are similar.
I'm curious, what are some opportunities that you think exist for entrepreneurs in India that doesn't necessarily exist in the rest of the world?
I don't think we are far away from you all in that sense of the term. I think it's what we were taught in our homes, what we were taught in the religion. So, for instance, we talked about the family culture. So, anybody who was handicapped, who was old, who was not so clever, who had some physical or mental problem, or challenged and all, those people would be looked after. The second difference, in my family, my cousin brother was never called cousin brother. He was called brother. If I called him a cousin brother, he would be insulted if I introduced him to another person and said, he is my cousin brother, which means he's one relationship away. So my closeness to him would be such that he would feel upset to say he's my cousin. So those are the kind of things which belong to a culture which was created. Some of them have been influenced by various other cultures now, and the nuclear families are growing very much in the country. But still, that connectivity is still there. So the relationships in terms of the family bonding still exist. It's reduced substantially, mainly by education of the West, but it still exists. So I'll tell you a joke. When I was born, when Kamal is my wife, so till my father was alive, which is 10 years ago, she used to joke and say that when Niranjan was born, that is myself, the doctor cut the umbilical cord with the mother, but forgot to cut it with the father. I was that close to my father, who lived up to a ripe age of 96. And people from the West don't understand that kind of connection and connectivity. And I mean, in the last years of his life, I would meet him every day. He was in the hospital for 1.5 years, and I would be with him every single day for some time. Now, people don't understand this kind of a thing because, Niranjan, you're a very busy man. How do you get time to go to the hospital and be with your father every single day in spite of multiple activities that you do? And for me, a question like that is strange because it doesn't, my mindset says, what the hell is this question about, It doesn't work for me. So I think that's the kind of thought process which makes it culturally different from the rest of the world. The second thing I think is we are not short-term. We don't have short-term relationship.
We addressed that a little earlier, but my question specifically was, in the entrepreneurial world, do you think there's some opportunities that exist in India that don't exist in the rest of the world? That's kind of what I wanted to.
Very simple. About 50 locations I can tell you about. We build, for example, 35 kilometers of national highways per day. Okay. Just construction. 50% of my population in Mumbai alone lives in shanties. In the next 7-8 years, we are going to rebuild all those shanties and make them into apartments and rebuild whole of Mumbai. And that's half of Mumbai. And we are talking about population of almost 4.5 million who have to be resettled. And it will happen in the next 5 to 8 years. We process in India today more data than the US and China put together today. And we only have data centers which are capable of handling 30% of the present capacity of data generated in India. So in the next 5 years, our data center growth would be 50% compounding per year for the next 5 years. Manufacturing capacity, we are working towards chips, we are working on automobiles, we are working on defense, we are working on aircraft, we are working on textiles, we are working on, you name it, we are working on that. On power supply, we had deficit of power supply 5 years ago. We will almost be able to match what is our requirement. But in the next 7 years, 40% of our power will be green power.
That'd be amazing.
And today it's only 5%. Yeah. So I think all this and more is something which is an opportunity for anybody on the West who wants to come to India and invest into it in every activity that we do. Schools, colleges, hospitals, infrastructure, ports. We are going to double the number of airports in the next 5 years.
Wow.
And we are the highest number of aeroplanes ordered in the world as any country. 1,600 new aircraft between Boeing and Airbus.
Wow. Amazing things happening.
Yeah, so there's a lot happening in here. We're going to double the number of hotels in India in the next 5 years.
Incredible.
When you say opportunity to work in India, develop in India, invest into India, the sky is the limit. So next 5 years is there. And we are growing at 6.2%. Our target is really to reach up to 8% GDP growth in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So the opportunities in India is going to be humongous. And I think we have really, we could always make mistakes, but I think by and large, we are going the right way.
I want to shift a bit here and kind of ask you about maybe some more personal things. So first question, do you have a favorite book?
Plenty of books are there. I'm very fond of biographies. So a large number of biographies of all the people who make successes in life are really there. So whether it's an Indian multimillionaire or billionaire or people who can really do as good we can do. Then, of course, the famous 7 special things that you can possibly do to be successful in life. Stephen Covey's old book that you really do it. We have a lot of books on how to handle chaos in life. And there are many authors that who the Indian thought process and how to handle all such ideas and thoughts in terms of what we can possibly do. So books are always fun.
What's a book that you would recommend written with the Indian mindset that you think the rest of the world, the rest of the business world could benefit from? And then if you have maybe one biography written by an Indian entrepreneur as well, if you have one top of mind, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, there's one by the owner of Infosys, Narayan Murthy's book.
Say that.
Narayan Murthy, the book, the person who built Infosys. Yeah. The basic idea of being able to grow with purpose. I think he puts it very, very well.
Okay. 3 words that you think your team would describe you as.
For me,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they would say that I look ahead, probably on the vision side in terms of doing it. I work very hard, and I can always surprise them by doing things differently. So whenever some things come up the way, I would suggest alternative ways to do it and step back, think about it, and then do it differently. So we're doing a new project, and we couldn't fit the timelines in which we could deliver it. And we decided to build the building in a different sort of way, which even our engineers couldn't come up, and I suggested some thoughts. And they're now agreeing, and my engineers are now redesigning some of the construction technologies which they're able to get and be able to do it differently. So we'll save, instead of 4.5 years, we will be able to do it in 3.25 years. So I think that'll make a world of a difference. It's just a thought process of how we can do it differently. To be honest, the team does the designing, so really they get most of the credit, but I kind of pushed them the edge in order to think through differently for the project. So I think many times we have to look at things differently in order to see how we can do it. Similar to what happened in COVID, I think we learned a lot in terms of how we should really do our work, how we should live life, how we should educate, how we should train, how should we take care of health, education, what's the quality of life that we need to change in our buildings, and how we need to do and take care of people. Big learning, and I think we completely changed how we work and live now differently.
Next question. If you had to start from zero at your age, no money, no contacts, but you're still a man with a vision in India, what would you do?
I would be able to ramp up 100 times faster than I ever did. Because now you have opportunity of resourcing unlimited amount of money. Earlier, when I started life for the first 20 years of my career, money was the biggest constraint. Didn't have the money, didn't have the capital, didn't have the resources, was not able to get the money. People wouldn't invest with you, banks wouldn't lend to you, investors wouldn't participate with you. India was that type of a country where people would not trust people who were in the real estate business. That's a 360-degree turn. Today, if I want to have any project of any size and any scale, people would be delighted to come and join hands with me to fund it, to put private equity, to share equity, to list it, to give credit, banks, financial institutions, FDI, any amount of money. So if you have a great plan today, and it's of any size and scale, and if you can bring your trust and credibility and brand equity on the table, money is not a constraint, which is surprising. So for me, if you had told me this 20 years, 30 years ago, and said, Niranjan, just dream big, and there's no shortage of money for the greatest plans that you have, I would say, come on, fool somebody else. I can't imagine a day and time where such things could happen, Chris. I think for a young person and a person who would start off today, we take all these things for granted. It's so easy for a great project in India to go forward, create new things and thought process, and you can have unlimited number of people who are willing to invest for you, including banks, financial institutions, private equity, and other firms. That's a huge, humongous difference for an entrepreneur who's starting today. And for people of credibility, the sky's the limit. And of course, because India is doing well. See, the environment is also positive. It's not just about people trusting me, it's also trusting the country and having the idea that India is a land of opportunity and of justice and ability to be able to, do it. So my country is doing very well and I am doing very well. So it's not just the trust and faith in Hiranandani's, which there is, but also in the fact that the country is doing extremely well. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What do you want to be known for?
I think I would like people to know me for not the money that I have, but the goodness with which I do my work. Whether it's my business or it is my hospitals or my schools or any other activity that I participate in. I think I would like to be known as a good man, a man who did well in his business, but actually he was a good man, irrespective of what else he was. And if I can get that on the table at the end of my life, it doesn't matter what I will be worth or value or how much money I died with. I don't think that would be important. Would be important to know that, look, he did good work and he gave back to society a lot.
Beautiful. Very well said. So I really enjoyed the interview today. I learned quite a bit. I don't know if you could tell, but I was even taking notes while you were speaking. So yes, I know the listeners will be as well. A few of my favorite parts were really the benefit. Well, one, the opportunities that's happening in India. I really did enjoy learning about that. I liked the mindsets that you guys have in India around families and working together and the trust factors that you have there. It's absolutely fascinating. Jugaad as well, your way of creative thinking and strategizing. But and then learning about Hiranandani Gardens. That's fascinating. And I think more and more cities are going to pop up like Hiranandani Gardens over the next decades. And it's just going to be absolutely incredible to see. But to know that you were one of the first, which is mind-blowing. So I really appreciate that. So before we leave and let you go, is there any place that you want to send the listeners, a website or social media where people can learn more about you, or books or anything?
Sure, I'll pass on that. I'm available to you on both on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and Facebook. So anytime, please do connect. I'll be happy to be connected to each and every one of your listeners.
Yeah, and you have a website, a personal website, Hiranandani.com as well. If you guys are looking, if you want to learn more about Hiranandani Gardens, you can go to HiranandaniCommunities.com. So there's all you have to do is Google Dr. Hiranandani and you can find all the great stuff. To wrap up again, thank you so much for reminding us that real assets aren't towers or terabytes, but the people and possibilities behind them. And to the listeners, explore Dr. Hiranandani and everything that he's done, because his life is fascinating and what he's created is fascinating. And it can only inspire us to do more and to think bigger and to change the world. This is Chris Reynolds signing off from the Business Method Podcast. You guys keep building, keep innovating, and remember, think in chapters, but dream in centuries. Thank you so much, Doctor, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.